Hey everyone, Kareem here, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Andrew Weilgus, who is the president and founder of Atlantic City FC. Andrew, thank you for taking the time to join us today. How's it going?
It's going great. Co-founder. I did have a co-founder with me, so I want to make sure I recognize Nick Bellata, who's the other co-founder.
Understood. So, could you just take us back in time and just share how you got involved into the beautiful game?
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I've been involved as much as you can as an American my whole life. I became an Arsenal fan. My father is married to a woman from North London, an area called Finchley, right in the shadows of the Emirates Stadium. Actually, the old Highbury Stadium, which is now close by to where Emirates is, and I remember watching Thierry Henry for the first time and just being like, "Ooh, I didn't know people can do that." And he was just one of the most impressive players I had ever seen, and that whole team kind of captivated my imagination. Bergkamp and Piers and just the way they played. So that was kind of the first introduction I had to a team version that I really cared about. I remember being a teenager in the U.S. getting a little bit of buzz, and I watched the World Cup game against Brazil that they lost 1-0, and everyone was overjoyed that we only lost 1-0. What an accomplishment! So that was always strange, but that was an interesting team too. And as an American football fan, I remember Tony Meola trying out for the New York Jets, and that bringing a lot of attention to sort of the crossover with the sport. But the fan side of me was pretty well established. How the business side started was a little bit different. My business partner and I have been in Atlantic City for 25 plus years. He actually grew up here. We met in college, and then I decided to come down here after a brief stint in Manhattan. And it struck me as incredible that we had this hugely Latino population down here, but no organized youth soccer, let alone professional soccer, but no organized youth soccer. And it after speaking to people in the area and kind of examining why professional sports hasn't worked in Atlantic City, um, I really got a lot of information about how I thought youth soccer could benefit from having a pro team. And the reason why is when you professionalize an operation, getting sponsorship, getting government support, getting those types of things to happen is a lot easier than when you're just essentially on an island with a group of kids and you're just asking for donations, right? They don't treat you with the same uh, gravitas, if you will, of trying to use that as a marketing tool, right? Because the thought process is, oh, this is just a hand away, this is just a giveaway. Whereas when you're a professional sports organization, every area of business looks at you as something they can leverage to reach parents, to reach families, to reach an audience that's passionate about what you care about. So the perception was different. Now, I happen to be very blessed because Nick and I had a friend named Steve Callender, who was the head of the Tropicana Hotel and Casino at the time. And Steve and I had long known each other through fantasy football, of all things. We were competitors in a fantasy football league. And I ran the idea by him. Hey, we want to start a professional team. Is the Tropicana interested in sponsoring? We think this would be really great for not only area uh, youth soccer and what we could do there, but really for the brand of Tropicana, getting the name out there and creating a buzz. It just so happened that their colors were purple, so that's why we felt like it was perfectly aligned as far as the pitch. The reason why we're purple though is because of Fiorentina. And I kind of fell in love with that jersey as a kid. My mom went to Florence, brought me back a Batistuta jersey, which I think I still got to this day. And I was just like, "Ooh, this is very pretty." So that's why we chose purple as colors. Um, so anyway, Steve Callender graciously agreed to bring the support of the Tropicana on board as a sponsor. Once we had that, we knew that we could do something serious. And originally, we were looking at going into a much higher league. But unfortunately, because we couldn't find anything resembling a stadium or facilities or training facilities to base our operations on, we decided to start at the bottom, so to speak. I guess technically it's not the bottom because you could go state league or something even lower, but start at a place where we would qualify for the U.S. Open Cup if we did well, which we thought was a lot of merit to achieve, and B, had a season that was very much in line with what Atlantic City is. It's a summer town. The heart of our tourist season is May through August. The heart of this season is May through August. We felt like it aligned very well with one of the national lower leagues, whether that's USL2 or the NPSL. So we explored both. Turns out that our competition in the USL2 at the Ocean City Nor'easters, which are a very successful franchise located down the road, we're not interested in having another successful franchise located up the road. So they, I don't know if it was fully blocked entry into USL2, but essentially made it impossible for us to join that year, at the very least. So we were very, very happy to join the NPSL. We felt like it was up and coming league with a lot of potential, a lot of really interesting teams. At the time, we had teams like Chattanooga and Detroit City, stories that were just really inspirational and really very interesting. I had read an interview with Dennis Crowley, who was the owner of the Kingston Stockade, about his journey to starting a team. So I got, super inspired by what the league's vision was at the time and all of those things. Steve was on board, and he felt like it was a good thing to start small and work our way up. And, Tropicana was intricately involved in our planning in the early stages and what they can do to help, and housing and meals for the players and all kinds of different stuff. So, we were off and running. That was really the catalyst that got it going. And then we just really tried to build out a network of everybody that was passionate about soccer in the area. For instance, one of our biggest supporters, who's now one of our VPs, is a guy named Jim Boss, who ironically runs Tilton Fitness in Atlantic City. If you could find me a better human being with a name who runs a gym whose name is Jim Boss, I don't know. But he also runs Mainland United Soccer Association. So he was able to help us. He's one of the board members. I shouldn't say he runs it, but he does a lot of work there. He was able to help get a lot of our players coaching gigs, working in the community. And then Tilton Fitness came on as a sponsor, and he was able to provide a state-of-the-art training facility for all of our players year-round. So we now had a headquarters, we had a base of operations, we had the ability to bring players back during the off-season to work out and to be part of the community. From that point forward, a lot of it just focused on what kind of facilities can we find to play our games in. Originally, we were floating around at a variety of high school places. First year we played at Stockton University, and we really liked that, but then they were going through a series of renovations that were going to make it hard for us to play there for a couple of years. Then COVID hit. Long story short, once those renovations took place, we went back to them and decided that's a perfect home for us. So, for the time being, we're not in Atlantic City, which is something we're ultimately hoping to do in some part, but it just may not be possible to actually have our physical stadium located here just based on the tight proximity of a tiny island. So if that's the case, then, playing at Stockton, where it's got tremendous parking and resources and everything there, 10, 15 minutes away, not a big deal. So we had a very successful season there this year. We were really encouraged by not only the crowds, but just by the groups of community groups that came out. We had a different local area youth team every game spotlighted. So that really gave kids a chance to be part of the organization and come out and participate. So that was a lot of fun.
Amazing. It sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's territory rights, a situation with that in regards to USL2, and that's why you have to go NPSL route.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. Now, I don't know if they extend those to new teams anymore. It may be that they don't, but at the time, the Ocean City Nor'easters are, a franchise that's been here quite some time. So for whatever the reason, they were not interested in us joining the USL League 2, which again worked out because the ultimate goal here is to get into the US Open Cup. Winning a league in and of itself is not particularly, it's nice, it's wonderful, but we would celebrate winning the NPSL just as much as celebrate winning USL2. And I believe the leagues are very comparable. I think if you took the best teams out of the NPSL against the best teams out of USL2, it would be very even. Maybe where you fall off is they have more depth at the back end. Their back end teams are probably better than the lower end teams at the NPSL. But it's either here nor there. Like, they're both two teams that qualify for a couple of US Open Cup spots a year and put on a good show for the community, which is the point.
Understood. NPSL, National Premier Soccer League. How did you come? So if there's any viewers that are going to be future club owners that want to learn about the process, can you just share a little bit about how did you find out about the NPSL, what the NPSL is, and how long did it take for you guys to launch an NPSL? I know that's 3 in 1.
So we started the process, I would say, in earnest in about September of 2017. And that's when we first reached out to both the USL2 and the NPSL and USL1 at the time, because that was becoming a thing at the time. And they were, having conversations about expansion. That was really, when you looked at the US soccer landscape, the only game in town, right? So it wasn't so much as learning about it. There was very, very finite number of choices. As I mentioned, I heard Dennis Crowley give an interview. This would have been in the spring of 2017. And he mentioned the NPSL, and he went through his whole budget. And basically, he laid out the fact that he started a team that runs on about a $75,000 a year budget. And he went line item by line item, what it costs them to do this, what it costs to do that. And the goal is to break even and not lose more than this. And I thought to myself, like, I can raise $75,000 in sponsorship money. I know I can. So that was like just one of the little seeds that got planted. USL had a little bit more gravitas at the time, mainly because of the USL Championship and the affiliation with Major League Soccer at the time. It was very aligned, where USL Championship was almost like the AAA league of Major League Soccer. That's all changed. USL is now completely on its own. And if anything, the NPSL seems to be aligning with Major League Soccer, because you've got the Philadelphia Union development squad in our league now, DC United's development squad in our league now. So what they're finding is, this is a nice level of competition for our, U19s, which are really essentially the kids that are not going to be in the 2 team of those programs, which plays in MLS next, but are academy kids that are back home for the summer from college, and that have an exceptional amount of talent and still might contribute to a pro setup one day, right? So it's funny how that's all flipped. So I think both leagues have a lot of merit, but for the most part, 85% of the players in both leagues are active college players that are in, some form of Division 1, 2, or 3 program in the United States or Canada.
Understood. That's something I wasn't too aware of. These MLS clubs having those, what would you call it, a feeder system or academy system?
Yeah, it's an academy system, and basically the academy structure tends to end at college, right? Once you get a kid, he's either good enough to go pro or he's going to college. But what happens to that kid that comes back from college? They're all looking for a place to play for the summer, because the summer season is 4 months. The collegiate season is 4 months. That gives players that strong 8-month-a-year base. Plus, there's a couple of nice months of training in the winter to get prepped for both of them. So you can stay at professional standards as a player if you participate in a high-level summer program and a collegiate program. If you don't do anything in the summer and you're just out there goofing around taking a summer job, good luck to you ever becoming a pro. You will not have the stamina to make it through a 35-game season. You got to get into that mindset of what the grind is from spring all the way through the end of fall in this country. So I think we play a vital role to fill in the gap of the collegiate system, which is essentially the National League in the United States. Like, if you go look at Europe, anything past the first 4 divisions in a country are usually semi-pro, non-paid, and are National League. But they don't have collegiate teams like we have collegiate teams. That's what they have. They have those local teams. So I think we fill in that gap, and we make sure that players who are aspiring to be professionals, whether it's at USL championship level or Major League Soccer level, have a 4-year window of, yes, there are student athletes, but they're also playing meaningful games. Not only the 4-month-a-year collegiate season, but almost a super season in the summer. Because if you look at it this way, between USL 2 and the NPSL, there's about 160 teams, right? Something like that, 160, 170 teams. I don't know exact number, but roughly we're about there. There's 4,000 college programs. Okay. So just by numbers, if you take the top players in every one of those college programs, that's usually who's fighting for one of these spots inside one of these limited rosters. So as a scout, are you going to analyze a small Division II college where maybe there's one or two gifted players that are foreign or that come in, but for the most part, they're playing against subpar competition, so you can't even really measure how good they are? Or are you going to focus your attention on a Super League in the summer where 12 of those players are in a starting lineup together from those small schools? We had some of our best players from France, but they played at Fort Lewis College in Colorado. It's not a huge school, but they were all from French Academy players. When I tell you they were not only worthy of playing in the United States, but their level versus probably everybody else in their conference was bonkers. But 4 guys isn't going to change a team. If you put 4 guys with 7 other guys that can't play, you know what I mean?
You got 11 guys on the pitch. You need 11.
It is one of the ultimate team sports. Like although I do love that video, one of my all-time favorite videos of the Japanese professionals playing with 100 kids on the pitch, and it's 3 guys just playing keep away from 100 kids chasing them. If you haven't seen it, YouTube it. It's fantastic.
Understood. You mentioned USL2, NPSL, but you didn't mention UPSL.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys approach that league? And if so, why did you choose NPSL over UPSL?
They didn't exist when we came on the scene, so they were late arrival. The initial version of them was managed by a pretty shady guy, from what we were told. I don't know if that's true. It's all hearsay, so maybe there's no truth to that. But I think the leagues are very protective of new coming leagues that get up there, and I've seen a countless number of people saying, "I'm starting a league." And, here's a new league, and we got a spokesperson for a league, and, we're the national premier upper league, and we're the Gold Coast premier soccer league. Like, just it's one after another after another. And I get it on a state level, like any of those state associations and leagues, that's wonderful. But like when you're going to build a pro national league, it's very difficult. Credit to UPSL. They've actually done a pretty good job of stabilizing an operation. And what you start to see is there's a hierarchy with these leagues where the B teams of my league, of the NPSL, are looking to join the UPSL for either A, extended season play in fall and spring, or B, like we did with Nisa Nation, having your feeder team, basically playing in a competitive league and not just, with random players. So I think they have found a very nice place. They're very cost effective. They sold to a company, so I think it's another group that runs them now. So I don't think there were the same ownership issues that existed, if there even were any to begin with. And again, this is all hearsay. I'm just going based on chatter. But they weren't around at the time, and we're really very comfortable with the length of season that we have. Like when we hit the playoffs and do the things we want to do, we're at about 15 games a year, which doesn't seem like that much, but in a 4-month span, like it's a lot.
Understood. As the co-founder of the club, could you share a little bit of insight to your day-to-day, what that looks like?
Yeah. So I guess it's very seasonal. There's operations that happen during the season, and the day-to-day of what that looks like is very different than the off season. So I'll take you through during the season, making sure my coaches, managers, trainers, players are all on schedule with what the training schedule is. Sometimes that fluctuates, so you think that that's a big deal, but with scheduling and facility rentals and where you're practicing, a lot of that shifts. So just making sure that there's cohesion in the soccer operations side. And then game day operations, sort of takes on a life of its own. I'm still a little bit too hands-on with how much I do on game day, but I'm kind of a perfectionist. So like I just want to try to build as great an experience as humanly possible. And we're getting better at it every year. So a lot of it is focused on that, putting flags up around campus to alert people that there's a game, making sure the PA system is set up, making sure our videographer is there, making sure the video crew is there, our play-by-play guy gets in, turning on the playlist for the player warm-ups, having the player check-ins with the referees, making sure that they have the rosters, making sure that the coaches have the substitution cards. It's an endless amount of very small details that go into making up what a game day experience is. And you really have to do that. And then a lot of time is spent on merchandise and food and beverage, just getting that all set up in anticipation of the game. So during the season, a lot of focus is on just what the experience is there, and also making sure our sponsors are getting, bang for their buck, and we're doing everything to promote them at games. Signage is up there. Our announcers are mentioning them, all of those different components. So that's critical. Obviously, we have our kit. So our kit itself is one of the greatest advertising mechanisms for the team, because our biggest sponsors have space there. During the week, it is fulfilling a lot of those orders for merchandise. During the season, our merchandise sales are the highest. And then around Christmas is the second highest. So just, trying to make sure that during the season we get jerseys out when people want them, and sometimes they want to wear them to the next game, and, all those different things. We've been known to occasionally hand deliver jerseys locally if we feel like, oh, we got a game coming up and I don't know if the post office is going to get this here to a guy. So, that type of thing I think happens routinely. We're still always looking for sponsors, actively talking to sponsors, looking for ticket buyers, and speaking to ticket, groups. Coordinating with youth soccer community groups during that time is also critical. Like every one of our home games had a different youth soccer club that was the sponsor that night. And then we run a lot of camps and clinics as well. So coordinating those and making sure those run during the season, which are usually with our coaching staff and players. In the off season, the owner or the owners of Detroit City once said, like, 9 months out of the year, we're a t-shirt sales company, and that's what their focus was in the off season. I think for us, merchandise is big, but also putting the squad together, recruiting, being in touch with the college games, speaking to coaches, talking to them about players, young players that might be from our area that maybe not be getting playing time during the season, but are showing promise in training and would be a good fit for us, because those conversations are invaluable. We don't know. If I see a kid and he's getting no minutes, I'm assuming, oh, well, maybe he stinks. But if he's a freshman and they got a senior on that club, and, that coach is ride or die with his guys, and he wants to make sure his older guys have those minutes, he may come to us and say, hey, I know this kid is interested in your club based on his proximity to your area. He didn't get playing time for me this year, but he's working his butt off in training. He's going to be in our plans for the next couple of years. You should consider him. People don't think that way. A lot of times they're fighting for the guys that got the minutes, that performed at very high levels in college. Some of those guys are either A, already committed to pro programs, or B, are very worn out by the time they get to you. So it's not always the best balance to have a team filled with the guys that got all the minutes. Sometimes you find some real gems of younger kids that have, been training at Syracuse and crushing it, but are second team players there because they're a defending national champion, So scouting, recruiting, talking to coaches, speaking to, a lot of times it's the assistant coach who does the recruiting. That is the most valuable person to speak to, because the head coach is very busy, and they're not necessarily going to give a lot of advice, but every team has a recruiting coordinator, and that recruiting coordinator is in your neighborhood. He's looking at your high school. He wants the connection to you, because you can go back and say to them, hey, I have this player. He's 17. He's getting some minutes. I had a kid named James Cahill who played right back for us, who started every game for us 2 seasons ago, started this season too, every game for us, but 2 seasons ago, before he got to college. So he was a recruit. He was going to a program, but he went to the coach like going into camp. I got 10 games of tape. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah.
You think that coach wasn't like impressed by the fact that he came in with that kind of game experience and that kind of motivation to play right away? So there's also those types of situations, and that helps us because that's a kid from a local program. So it's a very positive thing as well. So and then sponsorship is critical. Like you are always trying to sell tickets and sponsors and get area businesses involved and just build your base through that series of connections because youth soccer can sustain a program. You have a lot of these programs in USL2 and NPSL that are anchored by huge youth soccer programs, maybe 900 kids and a big travel program and a big rec program. So they don't care about sponsorship. But if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have those youth soccer programs driving you and you're basically a new team and a new brand, you need good area sponsors. So what I always say is sometimes there's a snowball effect. If you work hard to get that first one at the top tier, it makes it a lot easier to get other people on board to believe in you. So if you got to cut a deal for the first one to get that name recognition and get the rest following, do it. I early on, not that I recommend this necessarily, but it was a good strategy for us. We gave equal value in every dollar in sponsorship and tickets, as well as everything else we gave. So we were handing out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tickets. And we assumed, okay, we're not going to get anything from Gate this year. We're just not. We're going to give tickets away to everybody, but we'll have fans. We'll have a crowd. We'll have people buying merchandise. We'll have people buying concessions. And when you're a no-name brand that nobody knows and nobody knows what that game experience is, that's a very powerful thing to have. And like we went to every restaurant and went to the kitchen staff of every single restaurant in Atlantic City. And we're like, here's season tickets for every employee you've got back here. And like, they were like, something to do, something to bring the kids. By the way, I don't charge for kids. Under 18 is free.
Got it.
I'm the only one. Everybody else that charges tickets charges whatever they charge, $5 for adults, kids. I feel like if you're two parents and you got a ton of kids, you're not dropping $60 to come to a soccer game. So if it's $10 because it's $5 for an adult or $10 for an adult and all your kids are free and they have a great time, well, now I got, real return on investment. And you think that doesn't make a difference, but I can't tell you how many times I've watched these parents walk in, they pay $10 to get in, and then they're dropping 50 on our jersey for their kid. And the kid's walking away. Well, I just made 3 times the ticket price back on all of those kids. And I got them advertising me all the time, all over the place. So, definitely helpful.
I like that point that you made. It kind of opened my eyes a little bit more in regards to merchandise. 9 months out of the year, you're selling shirts, sweaters, T-shirts.
You got to stay relevant. I mean, we started an esports team. I'm actually talking to you from the Esports Innovation Center at Stockton University that I run. It's one of the things that I do, and we launched an esports team the first year. We launched ACFC to digitally compete in FIFA and PS or Pro Edition Soccer at the same time and get our brand out there. And the sponsors loved it. Like I have these beautiful pictures of the Tropicana jersey, from our first year, digital in the U.S. Open Cup bracket of Pro Evolution Soccer. So that type of exposure is huge for your sponsors, and it gets you attention, and it's free. And you just get one of your players that loves to play FIFA, and you join a league, and you stream it on your channels. And then you post it on your, Facebook, and you post it on your Twitter, and is that even a thing? You post it on your X, whatever.
Twitter, it's not Twitter no more. It's X.
No, not doing it, Elon Musk. I'm very stubborn with these types of things. Certain things I can get behind very easily. Like if you change an offensive name, I'm good. But Twitter was not offending anybody. That little blue bird did no harm to anybody. You just shot it out of the sky.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess he's smarter than I am. Look, I'm talking about owning a single A soccer team, and that guy spent $44 billion to change the name of it. So,
yeah, it's a big number, $44 billion. mentioned esports. If you need a FIFA player, I'm here, man. I'm
Oh
ready.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a FIFA guy. Uh,
Okay, yeah, we'll talk. I'll introduce you to my buddy Diego. He's the MLS champion from the
oh, wow.
Philadelphia Union. We had him in here. We did a tournament with the Philadelphia Union, and we had their snake playing games on the beach, and then he was playing video games in here. Then Diego took on the winner of our internal FIFA tournament, which turned out to be this kid from Stockton University, and he was talking a lot of smack. It did not go well for him. That's all I can tell you. Diego can play. I consider myself an excellent FIFA player. He,
Oh, come on, we gotta play. Me and you, we
oh,
got.
my pleasure. He had me down 3-0 at halftime, and like I was giving him everything I could handle, and I just couldn't. I couldn't beat him down in the box no matter what I was doing. And dude is very very slick. He's very very slick. He has what are they like opposable thumbs? Like just like it's like your thumb's not supposed to do that.
Yeah,
So I think that's a secret thing that he can do that I can't. But yeah, we'll have to get you down here.
some secret sauce. Yeah, I can't wait. You've definitely shined the light on a really nice part of New Jersey for me. We won't tap back into that, but um, you must be. How many employees do you have, and like, how do you manage it all?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just do. You just manage it all. So our coaching staff had four coaches plus a technical director. We have a physical trainer. We have a director of media. And then we have a group of interns that handle everything from social to game day activities. So, usually three. And then it's myself and my business partner. And then Jim is the other VP. And he handles all community relation stuff. So all of the aforementioned relationships with the youth organizations and setting up camps and clinics. Jim handles most of that stuff for us.
Understood. If we could just track back a little bit in regards to the NPSL, joining the NPSL, if you can share the process and how long it took to get in and then kick a ball.
Yeah. So I can't remember the exact meeting we had with the Ocean City Nor'easters, but essentially they asked for a face to face to talk to us about our proposed USL2 membership. This was probably September or October 2017.
Yep.
I was already at the time also in touch with, I believe, Dina was my initial contact who handled expansion for the NPSL. And both of the groups had sent me, I should also say, USL 1 and Stephen Short, who's not with them anymore, but was at the time leading the way there. That's who I first started with. And I probably spent all summer before I got to the point of realizing we're not going to be able to handle a pro team. Part of it was facilities. We were speaking to the city of Atlantic City and the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority about doing the baseball stadium as a soccer stadium. And originally they were like, sure. And then when we actually started the process of trying to do that, they were like, no. So that was a big kind of halt to the plans. And then we went back to USL2 or USL1 and said, we're not ready for you guys. It's too much money. We don't have a facility. We're not going to be able to make this happen. All we've got is the sponsorship, but that's not enough to do this. So they're like, well, that's okay. But what about USL2? And I was like, all right, well, let's explore that. But then they called me and they're like, yeah, a little bad news about the old USL2 conversation. And then at that point, after that meeting with the Ocean City Nor'easters, I said, okay, I'm not going to push this anymore. It's clear they don't want me in the league. I don't want to come into a hostile situation. It's much better for us to just join this other league. I love the other teams in the league. Like FC Monmouth was joining the same year, so you have an expansion team an hour and 10 minutes away. FC Motown, who eventually would become a defending national title holder, was an expansion team. You had Philadelphia Lone Stars, Westchester United, who are older than I am. So I was like, all right, these have prestigious teams that are playing a high level of soccer. And I looked at their rosters, and it's literally just all filled with Division I players, up and down the line from this. So I was like, there's not that much of a difference between USL2 and the NPSL. So, and it was a lot cheaper, maybe less than half the cost. So, I mean, that was a factor. We would have joined USL2, but probably only because certain people that were potentially investing at the time with us wanted that. It wasn't necessarily, what I think would have been best for the club. But nonetheless, so we reached out to Dina September, October, and I would say the process to get them our application, all of the information, the financial details, the ownership group, probably took about 2 months. And then we were approved right around the board meeting in New Orleans. So we attended that board meeting in 2017, the owners meeting as a new member, but as a new member that had not been announced yet. So we were there and people knew about us and people were interested in us. It's actually a very, very quick, funny story. Joe Barone was the chairman of the NPSL at the time. And we sat down with him at dinner, Nick and I, and he used to call us Atlantic City. He's like, "Hey, Atlantic City, come over here," because he had big accent. And he asked me, "How'd you get into this? How does this team choose purple? Why the purple?" So I told him the story of Fiorentina. My mom brought me back this jersey, this wonderful club. I started following them. I love them, etc. And I told him about the brothers that owned Fiorentina and drove it into the ground, and but this amazing town and the love of them. And he's like, obviously Joe knows Italy. So he's like, "Oh, that's really interesting." A couple years later, he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, Atlantic City, my owner bought your club." And I go, "What do you mean your owner bought my club? Like, I didn't sell Atlantic City to Rocco Camiso, who is the Cosmos owner and is a billionaire, owns Mediacom." And he goes, "No, Rocco, he bought Fiorentina. I'm moving to Florence." I was like, "Oh." So, not for nothing, but I'm going to take personal credit for Rocco Camiso buying Fiorentina, because I believe I planted that idea in Joe's head. Whether that's fact or fiction, I have no idea. You'll have to ask him for confirmation. But that's how I remember the story. So, we joined then, and then we had a huge launch back in Atlantic City a couple of weeks later after the owners' meetings. We had a press conference. I had probably 100 people in attendance for that, and that was at the Tropicana. And then, we opened up that May. So May of 2018. Our first exhibition game ever was against the Nebraska Bug Eaters, who are also an expansion team playing in their first game ever. And then we played our first ever NPSL game against FC Monmouth at home, 2-0 win. So yeah.
Nice. That's a good start. Why? Well, not why. How did you guys come up with the name Atlantic City FC?
Yeah, we thought about it. There were some false start soccer clubs that, quote, were professional that used a Atlantic City something name. Like, I think one was called the Atlantic City Diablos. One was called the Atlantic City Crusaders, which is just, you're going completely extreme. You're going the Crusaders to the Diablos. So that was very bizarre to me. I just, am a traditionalist, and I felt like this is a world famous city. Everybody knows the name Atlantic City, and I felt like Atlantic City FC should just be the name. It's just the name. And ACFC was an awesome moniker until the women stole it in California. And, but we are the OG ACFC. We tease them online all the time. It's nothing I can do about it. They're owned by Natalie Portman, and I love Natalie Portman. So I'm not really in a position to say anything except please invite me to one of your games.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to attending a game too. It'd be nice to see
Absolutely.
what's going on. Where do you see your club in the next 3 years?
Yeah, I think we have a real shot at some potential growth that might be into a different space. Again, for us, it's always been facilities. We don't have facilities. If we had professional facilities, we could have a professional club. That could be coming. We'll see. It's been in the works since the day I started this job, and it's been a very difficult process. If we get there, we get there. If we don't, we're going to be the best community team we can be with the resources that we have at our disposal. We're going to continue to run community-focused programming and really continue the work we're doing in Atlantic City. This fall, we started a program with the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City, doing soccer with them 3 days a week. We've got youth soccer going on all over the city, which hasn't happened. We have beach soccer all over the beach. If you go in front of the Tropicana right now, there's two beautiful brand new beach goals set up for a tournament this weekend. So, we're making headway in the areas that I don't think people would associate with the club, but that are the reasons why we started. And the more opportunity we bring to kids in Atlantic City, the better. Like when we got going, there was no high school women's team in Atlantic City High. Now there is. Atlantic Cape Community College didn't have a soccer program. One of our affiliates, Geo, coaches both programs. Now they have a men's and women's team. These are massive things for the community. It's also one of the reasons why we don't want to play in the fall right now. It's just because all of our coaches and players have so much going on with coaching programs, being part of, starting up programs. So it makes it very hard to be competitive. And like I would say, more than 60% of our roster are active college players. 40% aren't, and we could probably field something resembling a team. But it's just there's really no reason to do that. I like having the players focused on coaching in the fall.
Understood. I know we're coming up here on time. Could you describe the most significant challenge you faced as a club owner and how you overcame them?
Yeah. There's been a lot of them. Honestly, there has been a lot of them. I think the biggest thing is that there's been a little bit of a whack-a-mole issue happening that has been hard to manage. And what I mean by that is, as soon as we get one part of our program stabilized, some other part of the program disappears that we have to redo. Like, year one, we have housing, we have a sponsor, we have a venue. Year two, the venue is taken away. Now we have to find a new venue. Year three, the housing left because there was a huge issue with it didn't leave, but we went from a lot of space to very little space. So we were in a different venue, but now we got to deal with the whole housing issue. Year four was COVID. So you're dealing with just everything falling apart. Now we're in a position where our sponsorship deal is up. So we're in the process of adding a new parent sponsor. So like, as these changes happen, it's really hard to be stable with the program you're trying to build if you can't get the consistency with everything else. So it takes time to get that. I'm not discouraged because it does, but sometimes it's trial by error. You have to keep going through, okay, we tried playing a year at this venue. It wasn't the right fit for us. We moved. We're trying it here. Like, you're not always going to get everything right. Like coming up with the system for who's making our kits, what company you go with, how much you spend, how much merchandise you buy. Every year, it's all these different little lessons that you have to take into account that you got to get better at year after year. But sometimes the landscape shifts and you're doing the same thing you were doing, and now it's not going to work the same way. So, being very, very adaptable is critical. But that would be the thing that we've had to learn how to overcome is just a constantly shifting landscape with these different program elements. And one of those elements is coaches, right? Coaches come and go. We've had great coaches and they were here and now they can't be here next year. So it's like, same with players. You're going to graduate a certain number of players every year to different opportunities. So even if you're building some consistency with a core of guys, you don't know how long those players are going to be there.
Understood. Could we dive into the numbers in regards to the P&L? We don't have to be specific with numbers, but in regards to what's eating out of the expenses a lot.
Yeah, so league fees and referee fees, I would say probably represent maybe about 20% of a budget, something along those lines. Then you have your home game fees, which are a pretty substantial portion. You're going to be renting a field, paying an athletic trainer. If you have a broadcast team, you're going to be paying the broadcast team. If you have merchandise people, you're going to be paying the merchandise people. If you have F&B people, you'll be paying them. Your coaching staff and your coaching salaries make up the biggest chunk of what you spend, hopefully. And then you have all kinds of different player related expenses, whether it's registration fees or travel expenses or transportation. If you got to bring your guys, depending on where you're playing, 8 hours away, you got to feed them. You got to be able to handle a break if the game goes late and they got to go overnight. You got to be prepared to handle hotel rooms. There's a lot of different things that go into it in terms of potential expenses that you can hit. So you can map it out pretty carefully in terms of breaking down. This is what every game is going to cost. These are potential expenses for each of these games. These are the fixed costs with league fees, etc. These are my inventory costs for merchandise. How many jerseys I have? What's my because a lot of times you'll make no money if you don't order in bulk. I like to find little cheats like here's a cheat to the audience, free advice on a website I love, Sticker Mule. If you've never used it, check it out. Sticker Mule. They're not a sponsor, but they have all these little deals to get amazing stickers for your club, and they're usually like $9 a pop, and they'll send a stack of 50 stickers and a set of keychains and a set of pins. You're not going to be doing high volume for merch. So sometimes it's more about how many cool little things you have representing your brand than it is about having 100 different of the same item. You could also do custom t-shirts there with no minimums. So I don't make a lot of money when I do it that way, but I make enough that it's great to have 10 different designs and I only have to buy 3 of each, as opposed to I got to buy 50 small, 50 medium, 50 large, 100 XL of one single design as a t-shirt. So, things like that. And really put emphasis into your social media and your web presence. Like that's what every club has the power to be great at, is like be awesome at that stuff. Really like do as much as you can with content creation, build a great website. Don't give it just a terrible cookie cutter website. Invest in some graphic design folks that'll do animated intros and, hype scoring videos when you get a goal and things like that. That's what your crowd wants. That's what the fans want.
Yeah. What advice would you give to aspiring soccer club owners who want to enter into the industry?
I would say, expect to lose a lot more money than you think early on. Like you're building a brand, you have to take that into account. Like I don't think I properly gauged how much it costs to run a club. And when you run into issues, you lose the sponsorship, you lose housing, those things are hard to overcome unless you have a lot of personal money. I've put a lot of personal money into the club to make up for some of those deficiencies, but I'm continuously building a brand and investing in that brand. So I don't look at it as a loss so much as this, necessary investment to get to the next stage of where you want to go. But recognize that it comes and recognize that it's difficult to get there. And even if you put these numbers on paper and you said, hey, all I have to do is sell 300 tickets a game at $10 a ticket, you might sell 10 tickets a game. You might sell no tickets a game. You don't know that. Certain markets are very easy to hit and just explode. And if you've got the right expertise, you can really do it right. Like you look at a guy like Marcus Wolfertson, who launched Sarasota Paradise. Day one, understood the whole landscape, knew how to go about it, knew how to market, knew how to build a brand, knew how to just do every one of these things. Why? He asked. He went to every person he thought of that has done it successfully and tried and patiently learned and applied rules and took things and did more with it. And he had an exceptionally successful first season. Guys like Hitch in Michael Hitchinson and Hitchens in Annapolis. He's duplicated that multiple times. He's a part owner in Napa Valley. He's a part owner in a team in Texas. Like, those clubs continuously produce because they follow a smart model. So it's massive community engagement and outreach, trying to really give your fans ROI, return on investment, value for their money. You want them to be fans. What are you giving me to be your fan? And if the ROI is huge, well, you're a leg up because these other professional clubs are not giving huge ROI. You know what I mean? Like, you go to a baseball game, you would get 3 years of soccer games for a single baseball game. To come to Atlantic City for 3 years and spend the same money you would on a single year or a single game in Philly. So to me, that's value added, to a parent. I can offer you a 15-time return versus what you're spending to go to a single game over there. And trust me, kids are having just as much fun being right on the sideline, right on the fence, watching the action up close and getting to experience and having the players come over and clap for them afterwards, and being on the field at halftime and having the announcer announce their team. Like, I've watched their faces light up. You don't get that at professional sports. So it has its place. So just take that, use it, use that as the reason why people love you.
Understood. Last two questions here, and then I want to finish off with some fun questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
Messi, hot topic. What are your thoughts, and how? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
In my wildest imagination, I could never have imagined this was going to happen. I guess in the back of my head, I thought one day he'll come and we'll get the 39-year-old Messi, playing 20 minutes a game, and maybe he'll still be good. But this is still a guy who is pretty much at his absolute peak. He's coming off his World Cup win. Like, maybe 5 years ago he had a little bit, but he's still at a level where if it's 85% of Messi, it's like better than 99% of anyone that's ever played ever. So that's crazy to me. And the second thing is, like, this team literally looks like if you're playing FIFA in career mode and you just start buying foreign players. Like, for a while you were able to do that, and then I remember they ran an update once, and then all of a sudden the players in Europe were like, your league is too small, I won't go play there. So you couldn't buy the players anymore, even if you had all the money from your thing. So, like, what am I looking at? I'm looking at half of Barcelona from 2016 in their peak years, like sitting in Inter Miami, and I'm watching the craziest crowds I've ever seen in U.S. soccer history everywhere this guy goes. People tell me about what Pele was like when he came to the U.S. and played for the Cosmos in the '70s, and George Best, and sort of the mania that followed. But the difference is now people can watch around the world. You can get an Apple Plus subscription, and that'll benefit it. Back then, like, all the way up to when Arsenal won, when the Invincibles and went undefeated, I saw 3 games that year, and I had to fight to see every game. Like, you had to go somewhere to watch them. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like they just had games on. Now I can watch, like, second division Bulgaria if I want to, and bet on it too, which is crazy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, worldwide.
The combination of that is clearly going to change the landscape of U.S. soccer forever. And like Beckham was 1.0, Messi takes you to 4.0. You skip a couple spaces in between. Beckham was big. This guy's a different level big. He's a different level big. And he's not only the greatest player ever to play the sport, but like I said, I think he's still at his peak. I think he's still got a couple of years of being the greatest player in the sport before you really see a decline. And who knows? He's not, his physical type is not like, he's like a Ronaldo and he's going to lose this body mass. Like, the guy looks like my accountant. Like, if I was like, Mr. Messi, here are my taxes, when do I get these back? That makes sense to me. He doesn't look like he should be physically capable of doing what he does anyway now. So I don't know that it necessarily, as long as he keeps working out and stays healthy, that he can't keep this up for, sports science is crazy these days. Tom Brady Tom Brady's older than me. He just retired. Like, well, why can't Messi play for 4 or 5 more years at a high level? So for U.S. soccer, it's monumental leading into the World Cup. It just does so much. Um, and it's great. I have my problems with MLS. I've got my issues with it. I don't like a closed system. I do like the concept of an open pyramid and teams working their way up. It's just not going to happen. That's the thing. People are very optimistic. It's not going to happen with them. You can't have 25,000 seat stadiums and then one level down 3,000 seat stadiums and then expect that team to go back and forth. And we don't have 100-year history like England does of a 10-tier system. So I think what you're going to get in soccer in the US is Major League Soccer and minor league soccer. And maybe, if we're lucky, we'll get some really cool tournament structures that can be like a North American Champions League, where the top teams from each of these tiers are in a second competition. So like a Champions League pool would be one MLS club, a USL Championship club, and then 4 lower division clubs, right? That qualify for out of the best in either MLS Next or USL One or NISA or whatever, right? So that would be cool, and it doesn't upset the apple cart with MLS. And the thing that I always try to say to people is the United States is bigger than all of Europe, right? Minus Russia, obviously, if you don't count them. It's not the same as having just an English league with 20 teams that are in close proximity. The travel costs and what goes into this is exorbitant. It's very, very high. So I would rather them treat second competitions. If you're going to keep MLS closed, fine. Create a structure to let the secondary competitions be created that make it fun and interesting, like the US Open Cup. But I think the problem with the US Open Cup is it's a winner take all. It's a single elimination. So you can't get a group stage where you have a guaranteed number of games and a chance to have a home and away, and your team is playing in a big spot and they're playing back at you. That would be great for America, because it would be fun to watch that MLS club come to a 3,000 seat venue and play a USL League One team in a home and away circumstance. And I think fans would like it. So I see that as some potential things that can make it different than it is now, at least.
Understood. Yeah, that what you shared in regards to a Champions League in the US is a new idea that you just planted in my head, and that's sparked.
That's my idea. I registered the domain 6 years ago for North American Champions League.com. And listen, you want to run with it? Great. I don't want to be one of the guys that gets up and says, I'm starting a new league, because I've heard all those guys. I don't have the time or the energy. But yeah, I do think it's a great idea. And I think that it's the solution to this issue of promotion relegation, because it essentially is rewarding promotion and relegation, but without this permanence of the league structure, which again does not work in the United States based on the dynamics you have set up here. Wide travel times and a massive disparity in the size of the stadiums and the facilities. So you're not comparing apples to oranges. That's why in Europe, right, each one of those countries is its own league. That's what people fail to realize, right? MLS, you got one league in this entire giant geographic area, but it's essentially like having a super league in Europe of, one team in Sweden and one team in England and one team in Finland, and those are all states. So you do have that with the Champions League, but they certainly don't get up there and call for there to be one giant league with promotion relegation into all of it. They like the segmented league. So I feel like in the US, you can keep those segmented leagues. If it works, it works. USL Championship venues are way smaller and more intimate than MLS soccer venues. And I don't think the markets that they're in can support a jump to MLS. So why would you try to force that in and make it chaotic? Like, let's say the Pittsburgh Riverhounds make it into MLS through promotion. They have a 7,000 seat arena. How are you going to do that? It doesn't make any sense. So, it's one thing where like a Brighton makes it into the Premier League eventually they got a new stadium and they got a 20,000 seat stadium. But if you go look at what their, League Two stadium looked like in 1994, it was a 3,000 seat shack. So you have to do that. And then the other thing is there's no TV money like there is in England. You have all this money that goes to the teams that get promoted that does not exist in the country here. Now, maybe that might happen with Apple coming on and this being so successful. But I think what you've seen is with the Liga MX league play, the League Cup, that's the first version of the North Americans Champions League, right? That's the first thing where they can start leveraging it. And by the way, with North Americans Champions League, it opens it up to Canada, of course, as well. So now you can have the top team from League One Ontario be part of this group. You could have the team from the Canadian Premier League represent in these pods. And that's, that is a vision that I think can come to fruition. But again, you want to talk about working on it? We'll talk afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't want to be that guy trying to start that league and compete with those guys. I want to just get in their ecosystem. So
yeah, that was my approach. Like I said, I was very when I started out, I think I had very grandiose ideas about what I could do for the broad scope of soccer in world. Now I just want to be as good as I can be for Atlantic City, not worry about any place else. I've tried doing other things and being in other markets and trying that at the same time as running this. This is a full-time thing. So this has my attention.
Understood. So we caught up on Messi, and the next big thing in 2.5 years is the 2026 World Cup.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts, and how do you see this affecting your club?
Yeah, it's massive. Actually, we're participating with the NYNJ World Cup host committee, and it's going to be incredible for this area. Both Philadelphia will be a major hub, and North Jersey will be a major hub. So we're situated directly in between both of them. So we expect to have a variety of different World Cup related events in Atlantic City, fan fests, different activation events happening here. There's an excellent chance we may be hosting multiple teams in the state of New Jersey. How close they are to Atlantic City remains to be seen, but we've put forward at least the application so that they know the space is available for teams to be hosted here. We did host Saudi Arabia at the last World Cup hosted in the United States at Stockton University. So there is precedent. So we're going to be very excited. We hope to participate in partnership with the folks in Philadelphia and their committee, as well as the NYNJ committee, because even though we're South Jersey, we're sort of this border between both groups. And between them, we'll have 8 countries hosted here total.
Got it. That's a huge opportunity. I'm seeing a lot of money signs there going. So super excited for you guys. Just to end off here, 6 fun questions, Andrew, that I'd like for you to answer like super duper fast. I don't want you to think too much or like give too long of an answer. Just like something. All right. What's your favorite sport other than soccer?
American football.
What's your favorite soccer team?
Arsenal.
Favorite player?
Second, Fiorentina.
Favorite player?
Ever or currently?
Both.
Ever Thierry Henry or Batistuta. Currently, I mean, it's got to be Messi just from a sheer, like, watching. I mean, I got to see him live, Argentina versus Jamaica at Red Bull Stadium a couple years ago. Didn't do anything. He comes on in the 71st minute. The game was boring as sin. Guy scores a brace in 19 minutes. And it was just unbelievable. So give the nod to the GOAT.
Favorite music?
My favorite band is Fish. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before, but they're a Vermont-based progressive rock band. So I've seen them 75 times live since 1994. So we actually did a Jersey collaboration with them and their charitable foundation, Water Wheel, when they came to Atlantic City. So I'll give them a huge shout out.
Got it. Last 2, favorite food?
Italian.
Pasta.
Second place, Greek. Yep.
Give me the top 2. Pasta, the pizza, lasagna, which one?
Yeah, I mean, I try to eat a little healthier these days. Like pasta is definitely my first love, but if I'm going Italian, like a chicken marsala is my favorite. Like I'll, something simple like that. But I also love Greek food. Mediterranean in general, just very, very, very good and healthy stuff.
Last one. What's your favorite activity?
Yeah, I would say from a hobby standpoint, fantasy football. We're getting close to that season. I had some of my best friendships and relationships through fantasy football leagues over the years, and even the Premier League, soccer fantasy football is a lot of fun as well. So, I'm in a league with all of my players, so we get to talk smack during the season about who does what and that. So yeah, I'll go with that. But I'll say this: being a dad and spending time with my daughter, spending time with my fiance, like that's beyond anything else. That's always going to be above all the stuff. And sharing the football experiences with them is huge. Like that's a lot of fun, and getting to do it. My business partner has two daughters, and one is 12 and one is 10, and my daughter is 11, and they're all 9 months apart, and they've been best friends since they were born. So getting them to go to games together, to do all that stuff together, to grow up with this, that's been the best part of it by far.
Nice. Well, Andrew, before we go, I'd like to thank you for taking the time for joining me on the One Soccer Nation podcast today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kareem.